So here's the code that we were looking at before, and it's starting to get a little messy. So we're going to have to talk a little bit about cleaning some of this up later. Anyway, I have got this opening here that introduces you to the program. I have some input here that lets the user choose what they want to do in the program. Depending on their choice, it takes them different directions. So if they choose 1, which is to learn about substitutional ciphers, it will tell them about them. And then they can see an example if they want, and if so, then it will run all of that. And if they choose 2, it will tell them about transpositional ciphers. However, we haven't actually programmed any yet, so there's no example. And then if it doesn't understand their choice because they didn't mark a 1 or 2, then it says they didn't understand and it closes the program. Now that's not a great choice. What if instead I want the program to rerun? So I can do that using a loop. So I've already discussed conditionals. We've got this if, elif, else statement in here. So that's one type of control flow, and loops would be the other main type. So how do we do this? If we want it to do this over and over again, like once they've finished going through a choice and they want to choose the other one maybe, or didn't understand, we can use a while loop. There's more than one type of loop, but the while loop is the most obvious choice for this situation. We'll discuss the other loops very soon in another video. So we can do while, and we can make some sort of a variable. So we can say like while run prog is equal to true. Then it's going to do whatever's in there. Now we haven't defined this yet, so we need to define it. So run prog equals true. We haven't talked about true and false yet, but that is a Boolean type. So there's only two. It's either true or false. It's basically 1 or 0. But we're going to go with true, and we'll talk more about Booleans later on. If this is a loop block, then everything inside needs to be indented just like we did with these conditionals. So this is going to take a moment. Don't want to put them inside the string. Not inside the string. Needs to go in front of these two since this is a conditional block inside of this loop. Because I'm using spaces and I'm not using tabs, it doesn't really matter where these spaces go within there, because 4 plus 4 plus 4, no matter where those 4 go, is the same number. If you were using tabs and then you started mixing in spaces, that would be, well, that'd be a bad idea in general. But I suppose if you're using tabs, then it doesn't matter where the tab goes as long as you're putting it in there. And there we go. So now all of this is inside the loop. And how do we close the loop? Well, basically, the next command that is not indented by those 4 is outside of the loop. So print goodbye, and maybe this becomes please try again. Okay, so if we run this, so cd desktop python 3 info.py, press enter to continue, blah, blah, blah. Let's go with 3. All right, didn't understand, please try again. And the program restarts. Oh, I accidentally entered no string. Oh, again. Here it is. So if we do 2, and it tells me about it, press enter to continue, and then it restarts. So now the issue is, well, one, this is sort of messy, so we need to make this look nicer. But the other issue is it doesn't really make sense for it to run the opening as well. So instead, I can move this down here to just in front of where they actually choose, and I can delete all of these because there's no reason for it to run all of that as well. And now what if they actually want to exit? How do they get out of the program? I didn't make a way for that, so instead I could also say elif menu choice is equal to maybe X, then we could set, what did we call that variable? We called it run prog. So maybe run prog becomes false, right? So now it won't restart the program, it will say goodbye. And I need to add that in my menu choices so that way they actually are aware of it. To exit, type X. All right, and we'll put that in front of there. We can save it, and we can run this again. CD desktop, Python 3, press enter to continue, blah, 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 press enter to continue. If we miss it, look at that, it has the apology in there, and then it asks for another menu choice, and we can press X to escape, and it escaped. Now, one more thing to mention in here. We created a variable here, but we actually don't have to. We could actually just say that while true, and by default things are true, then it will run all of this and it will be in a loop. And instead of setting this to false, we could just say break, and that will break out of the loop. So if we save it and we try running it one more time, press enter to continue, press X. There we go. So it broke out. So we can also do break instead. There are two other commands like this that we can use. We can also do continue, which will skip any of the remaining lines in here and go back to the start of the loop, which can have some practical applications that we can talk about later. And there's also pass. Pass basically doesn't do anything at all. The reason why pass can be useful is what if you're going to develop all these menu choices later, but we wanted the code to already be here so that way we didn't have to set it up later and it was already had like placeholders. Instead of having it just empty and having Python get angry about why there's nothing in here, we can put pass in there and it will just run the code and it will skip that line, but it will allow you to have these elifs in there even though it's expecting something to be indented. Because we have code in there that is indented, it just doesn't do anything. So those are while loops. We will discuss for loops in the next video, and we're going to use them to create a new cipher. We're actually going to cover a few different things in there.